We should all go steampunk.
We're going live.
We are live.
Okay, hi
Say
Facebook.
hello, Facebook.
We're glad you're
Hey,
with us
Facebook.
today. Happy Tuesday. 30 seconds.
Never mind. He's a little bit different. This is a picture of him.
Oh,
But he
well,
wears,
I
like,
do
really-
like that look.
Yeah, really out there. Like, people call it outlandish. Some people love it.
Where's your headset?
Yeah.
Okay, coming in.
Good afternoon. Welcome to BISTalk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
And I'm Aaron Kanata, and we've got a substantive show for you this afternoon.
A what?
Substantive.
So, is that a
Means
word?
having a firm basis in reality. It's substance would be the root, I suppose. So I felt it was pretty. And by the way, I almost went for the low-hanging fruit and said we've got a very addictive show today, but I avoided that. I put a little bit of additional effort in, so I hope you and our listening audience appreciate it.
And in case people didn't notice, we have one of our very first celebrity hosts with us, Sonya Gomez.
Hi, good to be on again.
I'm glad you're back. So we're trying something as we get ready to expand the show nationally. We're having guests like you that have a great way to present things and come back as celebrity hosts.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be the celebrity host? Like,
It feels amazing.
does it feel like a light is shining on you from heaven,
Yeah.
bathing you in warmth and love?
It's like finally the world is recognizing me as I always see myself.
There we go. and since the show is really about what you're doing and we have a guest here, let's first of all, before we introduce our guest, talk a little bit about Sonya Gomez, who you are and what you do and why we're determining our topics the way we are.
Yeah, well, as you said, I'm Sonya Gomez. I'm a life coach, so I work with adults improving their lives, holding them accountable to reach their goals. However, what I am passionate about is working with adolescents with addiction issues or severe behavioral problems. I've worked with the population for many years and growing up with a family with similar problems. It's a passion of mine to spread awareness about it.
So it's something that was a part of your childhood.
Yes.
And I'm guessing informs a lot of what your passion's all about.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's interesting when you grow up with that kind of thing and then to have that passion moving forward. The challenges of adolescent addiction aren't just complications for the adolescent, but like everybody, no man's an island, you affect a lot of other people. But addiction for a child certainly rocks the world of the family and everybody associated with it.
It does in some families, but some families it's a way to bond in a sense. Some families do drugs together, and that's what's the cause of the addiction. It can tear a family apart. In some cases, that's the only way
I'm
they know how to
thinking
spend
maybe
time
I
together.
missed something with my kids, because wow, who knew they actually do that together? Huh. That must be a fairly dysfunctional way to grow up then if you're doing drugs with your parents.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what leads to addiction and coping mechanisms.
So we're going to do a series of shows on addiction, treatment, options, what it's kind of all about, how to talk to your kids. I mean, we have a lot of topics to go through. And in that light, we've invited John McDowell on. John McDowell is an addiction specialist. He's founder of Alternative Recovery Solutions, and that's the website, alternativerecoverysolutions.com. John, thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Glad you could be here. We called you kind of randomly because it looked like you were very knowledgeable in the information I read about you, about this world of adolescent addiction. So you get a phone call from us and a message saying, yeah, we do a radio show. Would you be interested in talking with us? What did you think when you got that call? Is that kind of a weird call to get?
It was a weird call. I didn't know how to take it, to be honest with you. So
Yeah, people tell me that a lot when they meet me.
I didn't know if it was a joke or if it was serious.
Yeah.
But you're here, so you must be a pretty trusting person, right?
Yeah.
I see it as an opportunity to come and share some information, so
So,
I appreciate the
well,
opportunity.
thank you for coming in. So, tell us a little bit about John McDonald and what you do and what your world is.
I am an addiction counselor. I work primarily with the courts and families who are dealing with drug and alcohol problems.
So, you're brought into the court system when somebody's been arrested or has. I'm guessing they wouldn't be through the court system if they didn't get arrested at some point. Or are they there with other.
A lot of what I do is with family court.
Oh, so that could mean that there's no arrest at all. It just there's a problem in the family courts taking charge of it.
Correct.
Huh.
A lot of custody disputes, along with criminal. But recently, it's been custody disputes where mom says dad's an alcoholic. Somebody's got to do an assessment and find out the truth. So I do a workup and then present that to the attorney, and then they present that to
Just
the
out of curiosity, can you tell, like for real, if somebody's an alcoholic by doing an assessment? Or is that something, because it seems to me somebody could hide that.
That's, yes, you can. You can't actually, alcoholic, that's, a word. But what I do a lot of biological testing. So I do GGT tests, MSV tests.
Or does blood and urine?
The blood and urine
okay.
tests.
That's hard to fake
And
that.
you can't, CDT tests that go back a year, hair test, hair follicle testing.
So you're going to know. You're going to know.
Yeah.
So you work with a lot of at-risk kids that are struggling. Outside of the court system, how do you get involved in cases? Are you called in by parents? What happens?
Usually parents, yes. And, mostly referral.
I'm guessing that if a parent's calling you, they're at a pretty low, tough, scary time in their lives.
Yes.
Or maybe they don't even know how bad maybe they don't even know how scared they should be if their kid has an alcohol or drug problem.
Most of the time it's overreaction or underreaction. It's either a little on the late side or they're experimenting as opposed to considered addicted to drugs.
So when you get called in like that in a family, you don't have the court oversight responsibilities. Do you work with the parents on putting a plan together to analyze and do an assessment of their child?
Yes. First I do a free screening, then I do an assessment, then I work individually, then I work with the family, and then together we put together a treatment plan if it's required, and then we move forward.
Okay, the court system is a separate topic. I want to talk about families outside the court system. There's so many families out there that are listening that immediately they understand what we're talking about because they've been through it. The rest of the world is concerned that they might go through it because they've heard stories that there's so many ways things can go wrong, but they're either the parent or maybe a grandparent of somebody they love very, very much. I'm thinking, I've been through this myself, I'm thinking that one of the biggest challenges of raising a kid is when they do start getting involved in some kind of illegal drug and you don't know what to do. And we'll get back to that because we've got a commercial break to go to. John McDonald is here. He is an addiction specialist. AlternativeRecoverySolutions.com is the website. You're listening to BISTalk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
We'll be right back, folks, with some answers for you. Stay with us.
It actually makes it easier
I know. I thought about that.
when we're passing the mic here.
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
No, I like your website. Do you deal with is that a phone?
Whose phone?
It is a phone.
Is that your phone? Is that your phone, Bob?
Do you only get involved when there's a substance issue, or do you?
Is it in here? It's vibrating there. It's not vibrating mine. Well, maybe I put my phone in there.
It wouldn't be the first
I
time.
lose everything.
What's this guy's name? Do you recognize this guy? Really famous Canadian. I mean, he's a hockey announcer and.
What's his name?
Well, don't worry about it.
I love the jacket.
I'm just curious whether
Don
you
Cherry.
get
Oh,
involved in,
yes,
like,
yes, yes.
divorces
Yeah,
and
that's
That's
who-
who.
custody
That's who
if
my
there
mom was
isn't a
saying.
substance abuse
Bob
problem.
Nixon?
Because I
the-
noticed
No,
on
no,
here,
no,
Okay.
no. Just to bring up
divorces
as
and
far as an announcer.
custody
type.
issues and stuff like
Okay,
that.
he was who I was
I've
thinking, who
learned-
dresses
I've learned
very
a lot
like.
about the system.
I don't want to say
Flamboyant.
outlandish. Yeah,
Flamboyant.
flamboyant is a great
But I
way
can help
to say it.
people
But look at these jackets. I mean, he
through
is
it
so
as an
funny.
advisor,
Yeah.
coach,
Look at
kind
this.
of, instead of.
It's incredible.
I
explain.
love
I can
it.
explain to them what to expect because it's.
Yeah, Don Cherry.
It's a
He's been around
ritual
for years.
with
What's your
all of
capacity
them.
for clients at one time? What's the maximum you can handle? Because it seems to me that that's a big job. And can you handle 10 at a time?
I try to keep as low as possible. I can handle 10 at a time, but I try to keep it at 5.
Yeah, that 5 would make some sense.
And I have a
It's just-
membership program where, with UCSD kids, where they. I do hear that. I don't know if that's yours or mine.
Okay, we need our headsets back
We won't
on.
hear
We're
it
getting
on
ready to
No,
come
you
in.
can't hear it on the air.
Okay,
Look
we're
Look at
good.
this jacket.
What?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at his name's Don Cherry.
I
He's
love that. I
really
love
famous
that.
Canadian.
I
Do you
would
know
wear
this
that.
guy? Hockey
Coming
announcer
in.
is really famous. Mics are hot.
Welcome back. You're listening to BizTalk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. And we are broadcasting today from the ESET studios. ESET Internet Security, do more. And want a podcast of the show? Well, of course you do. Go to ESPN1700.com. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
I'm Aaron Canada.
And I'm Bob Ryan. Glad to have you with us. A new voice today. Sonya, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it's
Our
good
new
to be here.
celebrity host.
Yes. Yeah.
You feel the status.
I feel the status.
Did you like
Feels amazing.
the red carpet we had for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I expected it to be redder, but maybe next time.
I love that earlier you said that other people are finally seeing what you saw in yourself. I think that's like the core of the believing is seeing concept
Yeah.
and
Yes,
what we espouse here on the show. So it's great to know that you fit the mold here on the show.
Yep.
Good,
Yep.
yeah.
I see myself as a lot less fat.
It's a good thing that
Eventually others will see me the same way.
I hear the
Good thing
camera
it's a radio
takes
show.
off 10 pounds, right?
Yeah, not this one. God, I actually saw myself standing up in front of it the other day and I went, I've become my father. I have. I really have become my father. I think that happens from time to time. Sonya, thanks for coming in. John McDowell is here with us, an addiction specialist at Alternative Recovery Solutions. John, thanks again.
Thank you.
We were talking about the difficulty of families in dealing with their adolescent kids. Well, actually, teenage kids, adolescent kids in crisis because they've discovered there might be some usage. Maybe they find some paraphernalia, maybe they find a little bit of pot, maybe they find a baggie that had powder in it. What in the world do you do as a parent? You can go to the internet, but then there's so many different conflicting stories, confrontational ones versus now you can go through, everything your kid owns, you can intrude. Or the other one, you've really got to give them their respect and their space and do with it differently. If they call you, what do you do when somebody says, I found pot in my kid's room?
Excuse me. I do a free screening with the family. Usually I come in and talk with mom and dad and find out the history and see what's going on. And then from there, I try to get a relationship with the child. So we go fishing, we'll do an activity, kayaking. I don't
Do
come
they
on
know
as
your
the
role?
counselor. I don't present myself in the suit, come in with the suit.
But mom and dad have
Talk
told
with
them while
mom.
you're there?
A friend of the family want to talk to you.
Oh, okay.
So I present myself as a friend of the family.
Oh. Okay.
Do you find that the parents' version of reality or what they think might be going on is often correct? Are they usually in line with what is the case actually is? Or when you speak with the children, is it they're usually way off base?
They're usually off base.
Really?
Yeah,
No,
they-
that would make sense because I've raised 3 kids and I don't think I got one thing right.
Usually when I talk to them, they all feel they're being picked apart, But when I talk to them, I talk to them like a friend and I listen and they appreciate that. And the more I listen, the more they tell me the truth. But they do feel like they're being the magnifying glasses on them.
Micromanaged, so to speak.
And they feel it's overreaction, which a lot of times it is overreaction. And I feel like overreaction is one of the worst things you can do with your.
So is there ever a time? Is there ever a time when parents find pot in the kid's room that's okay? I mean, in reality, is that something that? Because I'm guessing a lot of kids try pot. I mean, now that it's legal, it's going to be even more. Is there always a problem when a kid's smoking pot?
It should be addressed. It should always be addressed. Is it a problem?
You find that out when you address it?
5 times out of 10, it's experimentation as opposed to addiction.
Would you treat marijuana any differently than alcohol? I mean, at age 15, 16, whatever, they're both illegal, right?
Yes. I would treat them basically the same. You're right.
Yeah. And the overreaction that some well, you have something else you're going to say?
I just not exactly the same. No, I wouldn't exactly the same. Alcohol would be actually a little stronger because it's a little more it's worse than pot.
Yeah, you don't see too many potheads on Skid Row. Alcohol gets you there.
Alcohol is much more physically addicting and damages the body much more than pot. So. Alcohol, if I found my child drinking, that's, worse than...
Plus, it's everywhere. Alcohol is everywhere. And it will be everywhere probably for the rest of their lives, where you could stay away from pot for the most part. You can stay away from all the other drugs too, but alcohol is a difficult one.
Alcohol is physically addicting and pot is not physically addicting. So psychologically addicting, but it's not physically addicting. So... and at that age group, when they're young, you're doing a lot of damage to the neurology. You're changing a lot of circuitry. So, pot damages certain parts of the brain and the lungs, but not to the extent alcohol does.
So you would treat it a bit differently. You said that sometimes parents are overreacting. Yes. How do you handle that? Do you tell the parent that they're overreacting, or do you try to calm them down and say it may not be as bad as you think? How do you handle a parent that's just freaked out because they found some pot in their kid's room?
Through education.
Yeah.
The more education, the better.
If a kid is experimenting around, how do you deal with that? Do you tell them abstinence is the only way, or do the parents sometimes allow the experimentation going forward? What do you do with that? That seems like it's almost more difficult than an actual addiction.
It's very individualized.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I try to bring them down from the extreme overreaction to this is something we have to deal with.
I'm curious, do you see a correlation, either positive or negative, between stigmatizing drugs and alcohol in parents and whether or not the kids are likely to use or even abuse? So to kind of expand on that, if parents are pretty open about it and they might drink in the house, does that make the kid more likely or less likely to do drugs and maybe even to go overboard? Is there any correlation between that?
More likely.
Yeah, and I suppose putting beer in the baby bottle wasn't a good idea either.
Again,
the superior intellect is which is hard to keep.
I guess my question though was
too, real quick. I just want to throw in that a lot of the kids say, "Mom and Dad, I smoke it with Mom. Dad doesn't know it. Me and Mom smoke pot together." So it's kind of a difficult situation.
Talk about your Kool-Aid kid, Mom. Right?
Right.
But we do hear things about different societies where it's not so stigmatized, right? Where in Italy and various other countries, they'll drink wine, and kids might even be introduced to it at a younger age. But it never is this thing like, hey, this is awful, you must stay away from it. And it seems like a lot of cultures don't have the binge drinking that we do here.
Do you know the statistic of Italy? Do they have less alcohol problems there?
I would imagine so. I've heard as much, and we've got an expert in here.
Yeah.
They have fewer alcohol problems there,
right?
Which is amazing. We got to get to our commercial break. John McDowell is here. He is an addiction specialist at Alternative Recovery Solutions, and .com is the website. You're listening to BizTalk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
just lay it on the
Have
table.
you've
Perfect.
worked
You don't need
with
to move the mic, just
you've
lay it.
worked with families where the kids were just experimenting, I take it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to find out what's the actual steps you take. I mean, obviously they don't need to go into a recovery program or some kind of rehab program. So what do you do? I'd like to do that and then let's get into the actual addiction because we're a third of the way over already.
Oh, okay. It's more what not to do than what to do.
Then let's talk about that.
Okay.
That's good. You bring a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
You do. You've got to, and you don't sound nervous. Not
You're doing
even
just
a little
fine.
bit.
Doing great.
You do not. You sound like you were born to do this.
Okay.
A lot of good information.
Tom Cherry.
You didn't realize you were going to sound just as good as the shows you listen to.
I didn't even know I was going to be doing that.
Well, good. You didn't have any time to get nervous.
That's a
Yeah.
very good point.
I saw microphones going.
Good job, Sonya. Just surprise him.
That's how I do it.
That's how we roll here.
That's how you see what they're really made out of, right?
We ambush people onto the I know you're coming on now.
No, I do. It's easy when
Okay,
the
guys,
questions
coming back in.
come.
Welcome back. You're listening to BizTalk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. And we'd like to thank our engineer, Steve Blessing, today. Our music by Derek Gaudette. Our interns, Sarah, Andrew, Leah, Dan, and Sunit. We couldn't do it without you. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
And I'm Aaron Kanata.
And I'm Bob Ryan. Glad to have you with us. What was that?
Nothing. I think I just mixed up the order. I thought I was going last, and obviously not the case.
Wait.
No, you did fine.
I included an and, which meant it was final, right? And
Oh,
then
I see. So you screwed up, and I
did.
I pointed it out.
I had to bring us back down. We were doing so well, and I always say we do sufficient radio, so I had to pull us down somehow.
Yes. The overly oiled machine. Messy a bit. Celebrity host Sonya Gomez is here. Thanks for coming in. Inspire SD Life Coach.
Yes.
That's.com is the website. John McDowell is also here, addiction specialist with Alternative Recovery Solutions, and .com would be the website. If you or somebody you know is struggling with addiction in your own situation, or you have a child that you are concerned about, it might be a good place to start, right, John? I mean, they could get some information off your website.
Yes.
And it looks like a pretty good website. So alternativerecoverysolutions.com is the website. We were talking right before we went to break, John, about the fact that some parents find that there's some pot in their kids' rooms or some paraphernalia, or they catch their kids smoking pot. And sometimes it's not an addiction. The kids are not addicted. They're going through what most teenagers do with they're experimenting with something. And that's what you don't put a kid like that in recovery, do you? I mean, you don't put them in a rehab program if they're experimenting, correct?
That's correct. No, you don't immediately put someone in treatment.
So how do you said it needs to be addressed. So do you work with the parents on setting up a weight, and how in the world do you address it?
Well, there's some general things that identify addiction, which is genetics, environment, and culture. So if there's genetics in the child's family tree, then that increases the odds of addiction. Environment, and then the culture, like we were talking about.
Right. The culture of the family and who they're hanging around.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a glass of wine in Italy is culturally appropriate. So I forgot what I was saying.
And you were saying, we were talking about what happens if the kid's not addicted, but they're just experimenting. And you say three things that kind of affect the addiction: genetics, culture, and environment. So I'm guessing you modify some of those when you go in if they're just experimenting.
If those three things aren't there, then I, through a screening process, talking to the parents, find out why the kid is using the pot. What's the purpose? Kids don't use pot for no reason. They're doing it for a reason. 7 times out of 10, it's experimentation, recreation, not physical addiction, no dependence. So it's a good teachable moment for a parent to talk to their child and bring it up and put it on the table and talk.
And if
about
the
it.
kid says, I still want to do
what's
it, do
going
the
on?
parents allow them to do it? Or is
No,
that's
I
a
don't-
tough one.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, it's not appropriate to say it's okay to smoke pot. But kids, only a third of the kids are going to end up addicted. So the 2/3 are going to experiment for a period of time and then stop. There is a period that they'll use and then they'll stop. So overreacting to a child can extend that process and make it worse.
You've mentioned the overreacting a bunch of times, and what amazes me is we have a world where, and I've never had this thought until I met you. We have this world where the opiate addiction is supposedly rampant in the United States. Not supposedly, I think it is. We've got methamphetamine, we've got heroin, we've got alcohol, we've got lots of different things you can become addicted to. But what I hear you saying is that a parent overreacting to either addiction or experimentation can be damaging to the child in this situation. Am I hearing you right on that?
Yes.
So how in the world do you calm down a parent that finds out their kids are addicted to something? That seems. I mean, can you tell them it's going to be okay? Can you tell them there's ways out of this? What do you do to help them kind of get their feet back on the ground?
Everybody's so individualized. So it's really an education process and working with the families and trying to get them to understand. It's a good time for children to get closer to the parents instead of getting farther apart.
Now that's another interesting dynamic. I never thought about that either, but you could turn this into an opportunity as a parent. You take the challenge and you turn it into an opportunity to get closer to your kid.
Exactly.
The first word in I think the title of your company is alternative. Is this ideology? Is this what's alternative about what you do? Or how do you obviously think of your approach to addiction treatment as being a little bit different? Is it the fact that you go in and will get to know the children? What is alternative about your approach?
Alternative is, I don't have an office where I sit and bring a client in and they sit across the table and
do talk therapy.
50 minutes, we're done. Diagnosis. I don't. It's not that I don't believe it, I just don't do that myself. I believe you can get more accomplished around a campfire from 12 to 1 in the morning than you can sitting in an office with a kid. Because a kid sitting in an office, as soon as he walks in the door, he sees it, he plays the role, of the client. On the beach, he's himself. He'll relax, put his feet up, and talk to you. And that's what you want, is the kids to talk to you and be honest with you.
As an aside, you go ahead. You've got something else to say? I've got a note, so go ahead.
So no, with my alternative, I don't use the typical counseling scenario, which takes I'll come visit on a Saturday afternoon and we'll go fish and we'll sit on the pier and we'll fish for 3 hours. I'm not sitting out.
Sounds like you make a real personal connection, and taking it out of the office makes perfect sense because, as you said, they're playing a role when they come in there. They know that they're there, and you're the authoritarian. This sounds like you're putting yourself on the same field as them. You're going to them rather than having them come to you.
Right, and if they tell me they're smoking pot, I don't jump and start looking through the white pages for a treatment center to get them in, and oh my God, what did we do? It's.
Because that's how most parents would react. Throw up their arms and say, what did I do wrong? I'm a loser as a parent. You're a loser as a kid. We're both in trouble, kind of thing. You referred to the child as he a couple times. My guess is it's still a dominant male problem. Because I don't remember when I was younger any girls doing drugs. I just never saw it. I'm thinking it's probably changed, but we'll get back to that. Boys and girls, and then we'll talk about what if they really do need a treatment program, how you go into that. John McDowell is here, addiction specialist, alternative recovery solutions. You're listening to BISTalk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Yeah, I like the idea of you taking them out. When I worked with veterans, that's what I did. I would take veterans with severe mental illness out into the community. And they told me stuff they didn't tell their therapists or psychologists they were working with for 10 years. It's just
because you get on their turf in their environment,
yeah,
right?
And it's casual. When you're in the office, the brain, it's intimidating. You're being analyzed.
Yeah, of course.
Just having
it's
a
natural
conversation.
to seize up and put the defenses up, I would think.
Yeah, and with my clients now, we meet at a coffee shop if they want to meet in person or on the phone.
The benefit of, for me, being in a group home is because I grew up in it, I had to play the role of the kid. So I get to see it from both sides. I know it's like being under the microscope and going through, under the authority. So I can relate to both sides.
You have a unique perspective that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah, I get to see both sides. And we used to play, we used to play games with the psychologist. Let's see, give them a rabbit trail to run and chase.
Right.
The problem is you walk out with a label and a Ritalin medicine.
And then you label yourself. The labels they put on you.
Yes,
you
grow into the labels, right.
Yeah, that's
self-fulfilling
Okay, guys, we're coming back in.
It's horrible.
And now you get addicted to amphetamines.
Adderall.
Welcome back. You are listening to BizTalk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. And are you brave enough to see how the sausage is made? Well, are you? Come backstage and into the studio with us. Watch us on BizTalk Radio Facebook page. That's BISTalk. See us with our guests. And watch this overly oiled machine in action. And by all means, comment, like, and share us. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
I'm Aaron Canada.
I'm Bob Ryan. Glad to have you with us. Our celebrity host, Sonya Gomez, is here. And we're talking with John McDowell. He is an addiction specialist. AlternativeRecoverySolutions.com is the website. We're talking about your kids in our substantive show today and how you might speak with them, where you can go for help. And John, again, if somebody does need some help, the Alternative Recovery Solutions website would give them at least a toe in the door to get started and know where to go next.
Yes.
I was asking you if the majority of the youth you're working with are male.
Yes.
And do you know what percentage it is?
100%.
Ah, that's
Wow.
a big percentage.
100%.
Are girls just
I never thought of that until you just brought that up. I mean, I never.
But girls they're not as addictive as guys, I don't think, for whatever reason. There must be some genetic thing.
But is that an industry standard, or is that just the...
I'm sorry. I have 2 clients I'm working with. Adults, not children.
Not youth. But they're females.
Correct.
Yeah. But I'm thinking that the majority of the kids that get in are guys. Because that's... I mean, the Teen Challenge is a great men's program nationwide. I think they've only got 2 or 3 female centers because there's just no demand for it.
That's true.
Yeah. So when so it is a male-dominated problem at this point, which I don't know whether testosterone makes you want to do more stuff, stupid stuff.
Of course.
Yeah. Spoken like a true guy.
Yeah.
I know testosterone's made me do a lot of stupid stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So when you do meet with a family and or the parents and you find and you make a determination that there is a severe problem that needs help, do you provide that help personally, or do you research and recommend the right solution for rehab or whatever they're going to do next?
I help them find the appropriate placement.
And are there places better than others, or do you find they're all kind of the same? I'm getting an odd look. I'm not quite sure how to interpret that look.
The problem in the industry is we use the medical model, which is it's a disease, yet we use Alcoholics Anonymous primarily through most treatment programs, which is non-medical. So
there's a non-medical solution which nobody really makes any money on.
Exactly, and that's a big reason. I mean,
Are you serious?
that's a big I mean, that's one of the reasons for yes. there's payment for bipolar and for psychiatric issues, but there's not a lot of money in substance abuse treatment.
So, do you ever find models that do charge money that you like?
Gosh, I don't have any on the top of my head right now.
Seriously?
No.
So a lot of the solutions you look at aren't going to be hugely expensive for parents. Because I'm thinking a lot of parents are freaked out that they're going to need to come up with, $40, $50, $100, $200,000 to get their kid through treatment, and they don't have it.
The $90,000 a month place pretty much does the same thing, provides the same services, pretty much the same services as a free program.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
So you're familiar with Teen Challenge, I'm guessing, because I heard you say
I'm
something.
familiar with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a totally free program. You can't pay no matter what you do. And yet they have a year-long residential program that's got an amazing success rate.
Extremely.
Yeah, which is really interesting. And it doesn't cost a thing.
Exactly.
But we do have a problem in that there's no girls' facility in San Diego. At least there wasn't last time I checked. But are there other programs like Teen Challenge that don't cost much at all? And
Salvation Army is very well respected, and
they have a treat. I didn't know Salvation Army had a treatment program.
Treats addiction. Mm-hmm.
So if you're working with a family and you determine that one of these treatment centers is the right place, do you then follow the case through?
As much as they would like, yes.
And so
the more I can, the better.
So you stay with it as long as they want you to stay with it.
Yes.
And are you paid out of pocket for them then, or is this paid by insurance for you?
It's paid out of pocket.
Out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So parents do have to have some money to be able to hire you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not free, but
it's very, considering it's very inexpensive.
And if you can find them a treatment program that doesn't cost anything versus one that costs $500,000, then they say,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good model.
And a lot of adolescents end up going not just through one, but
Two, three.
The typical story I hear is we mortgaged our rental house, we mortgaged our home, we mortgaged,
and our retirement's gone,
broke.
and trying to help their kids.
Do you ever stay in contact with people that you've treated over the years? I've heard the statistic that if you're not an addict by either your early or mid-20s, the likelihood that you become one later in life is just significantly less. I'm wondering if you can confirm that just with anecdotal stuff that you've seen, but also when you do stay in touch with them, what is your relationship like with these people? Because it's got to be pretty powerful to know you helped somebody beat addiction.
It's very powerful, and it's funny. I ran into one of my clients in church. I was sitting in church, and the client popped up, and I like making money, but I'm passionate about helping kids through this because it's a lifelong deal. It's not a short-term issue. It's a long-term issue. So,
do you have the philosophy that once somebody is addicted, they're always an addict, or can somebody be a former addict?
I think one of the biggest problems in the industry in general is misdiagnosis.
Seriously. Misdiagnosis. How you mean they are addicted and they're diagnosed as not, or they're not addicted and they are diagnosed as an addict?
I think a lot of people don't take the time to investigate. They don't assess the situation fully. Usually someone in your family or a friend of the family says, "You drink too much, Bob. You're an alcoholic. You need to go to AA." And that's the end of the story, because you drink too much. There's a lot more to addiction than simply you drinking too much for a period of time. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's...
Yeah, kind of.
So the underlying issue could be maybe depression or extreme anxiety, maybe some other mental illness.
Lots of stuff.
If somebody's taking some kind of chemical in their body over a period of time, they're medicating something somehow, some way.
Exactly.
And we'll get back to that when we come back. John McDowell is here, addiction specialist, AlternativeRecoverySolutions.com is his website. You're listening to BizTalk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
So
What
you
were we
talk about
talking about right when we went to the break?
What's my note say?
It says investigate now.
Assess. So misdiagnosis.
And the
So
underlying
just
issue.
because a family member says you drink too much, you should go to AA. You got it?
You talk about the medical model being here in the U.S. I was in Spain for 4 months working with mental illness and people with addiction, and they're all about recovery model. So it was more of the community integration, less therapy and pharmaceutical drugs.
interesting.
It was a lot of let's
It's
walk with
the-
you and go grocery shopping together.
Right.
And let's go.
The social interaction and support.
I think that's
Absolutely.
what they're doing in Portugal too, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and
it's
it's
more
not-
reintroducing you to the community. The fact that you're really lost as an individual and you don't have any support
It's
is
not
one of the major
fixing
reasons, right?
somebody. Yeah, it's how do you live with whatever labels you may
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
We didn't really get into too much detail about what not to do. And I think that's important for our listeners.
You mean what not to do if you find out your kids are addicted?
Oh, we got 30 seconds yet. Yes, exactly. Because a lot of people do the wrong things and may make the situation
So when
worse.
we come back, we'll talk about misdiagnosis and then the medical model versus the. Okay. Or do you want to do something else?
Sure. No, that's fine.
Okay.
We're coming out of the wire too, huh?
Yeah, we're almost done.
2 more segments.
Flies by, doesn't it?
Okay, let's go. Let's have fun. Welcome back. You're listening to BizTalk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. And we are broadcasting today from the ESET studios. ESET Internet Security, do more. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
I'm Aaron Canada.
And I'm Bob Ryan. Celebrity host Sonya Gomez is here, as you just heard, Inspire SD Life Coach. Thanks for being our celebrity host. We're looking forward to seeing how this works for us.
I'm looking forward to it too. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, and John McDowell here, addiction specialist. Recovery is what he does. Alternative Recovery Solutions is the website. John, again, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
We don't have enough time to really get into too much, but one of the things that you said is there's often a misdiagnosis. Are they diagnosing it incorrectly that somebody's addicted when they're not, or are they misdiagnosing the other way around, saying they're not addicted when they really are, or is it either, or is it both?
An example would be an adolescent. Take an adolescent, find pot, take them to a professional. In the 1 hour session, 10 minutes, you've got how you doing. The last 10 minutes is wrapping it up. You got about 30 minutes of communicating. A child generally is not going to unload his psychological issues in 30 minutes, but yet at times adolescents will walk out with a diagnosis and a prescription of Adderall because he's hypertensive, because mom says he runs around too much because he's 12 years old. So that's one of, when I'm talking about misdiagnosis,
It might not be about the addiction. It might be about something else, like they might have an underlying personality disorder or problem that they're medicating and nobody diagnoses that.
or there's no problem.
Or there's no problem at all and they're
They're
diagnosing.
children.
They're just being kids. Yeah.
Today with the machinery, kids don't get to run, jump, play.
They're playing video games all day, so no wonder they have extra energy.
Right, and if they do run around, they're automatically
What
ADHD.
if you had to guess, just take a wild guess, what percentage of patients get misdiagnosed in your experience? Not in general, but in your experience. Is it a fair amount?
With adults, I would say it's very high. When I go to AA meetings and I talk to people, I'm not going to say very high, I'm going to say 50% who were told they were alcoholic by a friend or a relative without fully investigating their drinking.
So let's say a parent does find pot or paraphernalia or other drugs. Do they tackle it themselves at first, or is it depending upon how good of their relationship is with? In other words, what does a parent do? when that happens? Is there a universal way to handle it, or is it going to be different for each family?
Yeah, the biggest thing of all, don't overreact. Don't underreact. That's like the biggest.
In other words, you need to do something. You need to address it. You don't need. You shouldn't ignore it because that's underreacting.
Don't ignore it.
But don't throw your hands up and run around the house saying, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!"
Bring it to the table and make it a teachable moment.
Do you have an example of some of the language a parent might use? Like, but if they're sitting down with their kid, they say, "Listen, we understand or recognize that you're going to be tempted to do this or might be doing this." I mean, do you coach them on even how to have that conversation?
Yes, it's kids are usually ambivalent. They want to do it, but they really don't want to do it. Most kids are going along with the gag and they're with the peers, but the other part of them, a lot of them don't want to be doing what they're doing. So they need the opportunity in talking to mom or dad to be okay to not do it. Does that make sense?
Do they need a way out? Do they
need a way out so they can be themselves.
So parents can give that to them.
Right. It's a validation. It's a explaining to them that what they're doing is not so extreme. It's a behavior that's unacceptable. Let's deal with the behavior, not you're a drug addict.
I'm not sure I had the capacity when my kids were younger to do that without an excessive amount of energy. Because I remember a couple of times finding, some different things around. My energy level went through the roof, and it was really hard to control my own emotions and manage myself, let alone think of how to deal with it with the kids. So if there's parents out there like me that really don't have a clue what to do and feel like maybe they're not going to handle things really well, is there another way to do this? I mean, can you go to an AA meeting with your kids? Can you bring somebody like you in for an initial meeting? There's got to be some options for people like me that struggle with the emotional level of this.
Yes.
And I could do it today, but 25 years ago was a little bit more difficult for me.
You can call somebody like me for a free screening, and I can pretty much screen it out. Going to an AA meeting, educating, going to an AA meeting, looking at what's out there as far as treatment, and seeing how the child reacts to it.
Well, you just gave me the answer. They could call you, and you would give them a free screening, and that would give them at least a feeling of comfort that there's somebody in this world that has a plan and knows what to do next.
Exactly.
Are there signs parents can look for outside of just physically finding the drugs in the room or catching somebody in the act? Can looking at grades, if somebody's been a good student and all of a sudden they're slipping, are there maybe less obvious things that parents can kind of be on the lookout for?
Yeah, and it's kind of, it may sound crazy, but music, changing their clothing.
Like starting to listen to Bob Marley?
Music they wouldn't normally listen to, dress they wouldn't normally dress, peers they wouldn't normally hang out with, and then intentionally rebellion. They pick, and a lot of the time kids will leave things around intentionally for the parents to find them because they want that conversation to be brought out.
Isn't that interesting? Do kids admit this from time to time when they're talking with it? That they really wanted mom and dad to be involved, so they left it out.
In so many words, yeah.
Wow.
Because mom's so busy, dad's so busy.
Do you have a way of measuring?
Do
you have a way of measuring success? In other words, when you work with somebody and parents hire you to help, what's the likelihood you're going to get this child through this without relapse? Or is it? Are you able to even keep those statistics?
You can't keep those because when things get better, they're gone.
Right, you lose track of them.
You lose track.
Yeah.
Although I do call back, and I have a very high success rate actually.
That must feel good.
It does feel good, and that's really what keeps me going is the.
What's the hardest drug to work with?
Heroin.
Heroin, because of the gut. It hurts so bad. The physical addiction is horrible. Well, just coming down off of narcotics, because 7 times in my life I was on narcotics, had to have surgery or whatever, and it fixed it. So then I came off of the narcotics, and that 3 days is like hell on earth. I can't imagine what heroin would be like. We'll get back to that after the break. John McDowell is here. AlternativeRecoverySolutions.com is his website. He is an addiction specialist. This is Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Last segment coming up.
You brought up a key, which I think is probably the most important thing.
It always happened in the last
It
segment.
does.
Statistically, more people get addicted, and this is across the board, in America anyway, on our own. Medication, injuries. I hear it. I hear it 9 times out of 10.
Yep.
I broke my arm when I
broke
was
my neck.
10 years old, and they gave me a shot of something, and I'll never forget. But that's Demerol. Kids remember Demerol. I mean, how
My
do they?
daughter
Interesting.
crushed her feet in a car accident, and I was sitting there with her when she got the Demerol. She looked up at me. She's like 13 years old. She goes, "Damn, Dad, that's really good drugs." Because it took like an hour or 2 hours
right?
to get her from where it happened. She was at church, and her feet slid down, and the guy driving ran into the back of another car, so crushed her feet in between 2 cars. Yeah, it was a mess. It was a mess.
If I could give one real message,
Let's do that.
That is so, parents should not be asking the doctor to get my kid out of pain at all
Okay,
costs.
guys, we're coming back in.
That's a good one. That's where 19 years of my life was on narcotics for
3
broken necks,
seconds.
backs.
Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where, yes, we do walk the talk. Get a podcast of today's show and any of our previous shows. Now we're talking. Go to ESPN1700.com. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
I'm Aaron Canada.
And I'm Bob Ryan. Glad to have you with us. Our last segment coming up. John McDowell is here. He is an addiction specialist working a lot with younger population, adolescents, teenagers, kids. AlternativeRecoverySolutions.com is the website. John, thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
During the break, you said that when I was talking about I asked you what the toughest drug to work with was is heroin. I was relaying my own experience of going on and off of narcotics over a 19-year period of time. And during the break, you said that brought up something that you're really passionate about explaining to people, and that's how a lot of people get addicted to narcotics.
A 13-year, what's happening in the medical, the pain management is parents can't stand to see their kids hurt. Obviously, you don't want to see your kids going through pain. So parents are asking doctors, please remove my kid's pain. Well, the doctors prescribe high-power drugs that opiates. Oxycontin. These have long-lasting. They change your circuits in your brain.
It's about as close to heroin as you can get with a drug that's legal.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and it does permanent damage. You can't give something that powerful.
And the physical addiction can set in very, very short amounts of time. Very short amounts of time. So do you think that's where most of the narcotic addiction comes from? Is it starts off at the doctor's office?
The typical story that I hear, and this is from housewives, they got hurt, they broke their arm when they were 13, they got a shot of Demerol, they got a shot of opiates, and they never forget everything about that incident. And from then on,
it's like the first time is amazing. When Demerol hits and you're in pain and that Demerol hits you, it's like the most amazing wave of relief and warmth and love, and it's like God just cradles you in his hand, but it's not God, which is really scary.
Exactly. You never forget it, and then whenever you have trouble after that, if you're prone to addiction, the next thing you're going to think about is, how do I get out of pain? Take something. And to pills.
If a doctor's responsibility is for the overall well-being of a patient, right? That seems really counterintuitive. If we know that this is happening, they should push back. Do you find that some do, or is this just I want to write a script and be done because I've got 6 minutes with this patient, and then I move on to the next. Is there really do doctors actually treat their patients as this is a lifelong commitment to this person to keep them well forever, or for as long as I can?
It's changing as we speak. 5 years ago it was much different. Today it's starting to change. Yes, giving out OxyContin is rare. It's not the common. So,
back in the 80s when I broke my neck, I got unbelievable amounts of OxyContin, and I had no idea what the stuff was. I had no idea why I could walk out of the house and come back 3 days later and not remember where I had been. Very, very strange occurrence in my life. But it was intense. I was in intense pain. So I kind of get that whole process. What does one do if they become addicted to pain medication and they need something for pain relief? That's a tough one.
There are pain management doctors that do have ways of getting you out of pain.
And they would be also known as alternatives, right? I mean, but the alternatives in these circumstances, it sounds like they should start becoming the norm.
Exactly.
We should look at the alternatives first before we start offering these drugs that can potentially alter the course of your life and create an addict.
Did you know if you have a backache and you hit your toe with a hammer, your back quits hurting?
Well, 30
There's your alternative.
30 or 40% of pain is mental. It's not even physical. So we generate pain,
And there's so many studies about opioids that actually increase pain sensitivity over time, which I'm pretty sure is actually real. Lots of reasons not to do this. But the reality of it is, if a parent needs help or is concerned, my guess is they should reach out to somebody somewhere. It may not be the right person in the beginning, but they should keep going until they find the right person. And one person they can reach out to is you, John, at alternativerecoverysolutions.com. And there are others that I'm guessing are good in your field as well. I mean, you're not the only source for it.
No.
So
there's a lot of other people
that do what you do, or do you have an unusual model?
Sure. I'm different. I do things differently. But there's a lot of other good counselors out there.
What about treatment centers? Do you use any treatment centers in San Diego? We brushed on this a little bit before, but you didn't give me the names of any that so you're smiling at me.
I don't
advocate for.
I don't advocate treatment. It depends on the individual. That's like. So
there's no panacea. There's no one treatment center that you could say, yeah, if you go there, that they're going to give you everything you need.
No.
No.
And what most people do is they look at the back of their insurance card and they see, give me a list. They look at the list and they go, what's the most expensive place I can go to? And now the focus is off treatment, and the focus goes on being treated,
The financial aspects.
The financial aspects.
Wait, the focus goes off treatment and goes on how insurance is going to pay for everything.
Well, you're going to live, where am I going to go? Do I the beach, or am I going to go to Malibu? Oh, they have this, the amenities, instead of what exactly are they going to be
if I've got a choice between a recovery plan in Malibu and one in Yuma, I'd probably pick the one in Malibu simply because it's closer to the beach.
Exactly.
And I love Yuma. It's a nice little town.
Exactly.
Yeah. But the bottom line is people are going to look at their insurance, decide which one they're going to go to based on what their insurance will cover. And that's what you see.
It pretty much goes.
Do insurances typically cover rehabilitation these days?
Yes.
They do. It's part of most health insurance plans. What about those that are on Medicare or Medicaid?
There are places for those.
Seriously. So there is stuff
There's
available.
Few. There's a lot of reentry. A lot of the money's going into reentry from the prison system. So the money's going there.
Really?
Right.
So
it's making it.
That's a whole nother issue.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, it's.
But we're getting ready to close the show here, but I'm wondering if you've ever had any surprises in the people you worked with. Was there somebody that you worked with, you don't have to talk about who they are, that you didn't think was going to make it and they did, or somebody that you were positive and they struggle? Do you ever
Yes.
get surprises, or do you know pretty much when you go in how it's all going to come
No,
out?
I know of one of my clients who actually came off opiates with no harm reduction and made it beyond 5-year mark, and is still safe and still today clean.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And those are always happy memories and happy times when you take a look at your success like that.
Her life is like completely different. She's a functioning, living a wonderful life.
So people can go to alternativerecoverysolutions.com, get the information, and contact you through there.
Please.
John McDowell, thank you so much, addiction specialist. Celebrity host Sonya Gomez, InspireSDLifeCoach.com.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You've been listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we walk the talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Sonya Gomez.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
Folks, go and have a great and substantive day. Bye-bye.
And that is a wrap.
You're a natural.
You did amazing.
Did you
Say
feel
goodbye
nervous?
to Facebook. Let's say
Bye,
goodbye to
Facebook.
Facebook.
Bye, Facebook.
Goodbye, Facebook.
Bye, Facebook. We'll see you tomorrow.
Because you didn't, there was